My phone lit up at 1:07 a.m. on Thanksgiving Eve with a text that felt like a slap across the face. Don't bother coming tomorrow. Karen's in charge of hosting the Pinecrest Estates HOA Thanksgiving feast this year, and she doesn't want you ruining the atmosphere. I stared at the glowing screen in my quiet Denver suburb home, the only light in the room. A year ago, I had wired $850,000 straight into the HOA's collapsing accounts to stop the whole neighborhood from losing its common property to foreclosure after a brutal lawsuit with a developer. Now the woman who had never once thanked me was banning me from the very clubhouse I had saved. My name is Lauren Hayes, 36, single, and apparently the neighborhood's designated buzzkill. I had spent 15 years climbing the corporate ladder in fintech, living like a monk so I could actually build something real. While Karen Blakely paraded around in Lululemon and called herself the visionary president, I had quietly kept my head down. I paid every assessment on time. I trimmed my lawn to the exact 2.5 inches the rules demanded. I never flew a flag that might offend anyone. And when the HOA was drowning in six-figure legal bills and facing liens on the clubhouse itself, I stepped up with every penny I had, my 401k, my investments, even the Tesla I sold without complaint. The board had signed the loan agreement in a panic. 5 years to repay, no interest, generous terms. But my lawyer had insisted on one clause. If they missed even a token payment in the first year or tried to refinance without my written consent, full ownership of the clubhouse transferred to me immediately. Karen, of course, had treated the document like a napkin. She never read it. She was too busy planning her exclusive networking brunches inside the clubhouse she now treated like her personal empire. Those brunches charged residents $150 a head for leadership workshops that were really just her reading motivational quotes while serving cheap mimosas. She posted Instagram stories calling the clubhouse my community vision headquarters. Meanwhile, she fined Mrs. Delgado next door $250 for having Christmas lights up one day early and wrote me up last summer for excessive bird feeder usage because 3 cardinals were apparently a safety hazard. I scrolled back through our HOA group chat. Just last week, Karen had posted her usual list of dishes everyone else needed to bring to her Thanksgiving feast. My famous green bean casserole was on there, the one I had perfected over years of being the reliable one. Now, 12 hours before the party, I was disinvited with the casual cruelty of someone who had never sacrificed anything. Don't make things tense, her follow-up text read. Tense? Me? The woman who had worked 70-hour weeks while Karen networked on company time? The one who had never taken a vacation so the neighborhood could keep its pool and tennis courts? I walked barefoot into my home office, the hardwood cold under my feet. The filing cabinet held the thick folder my lawyer had labeled fireproof. Every receipt, every wire transfer confirmation, every board meeting minute where Karen had promised repayment soon. Public records showed the board, under Karen's direction, had tried to take out another loan against the clubhouse 6 months ago without telling me. The bank had rejected it because the deed was already in my name. They had no idea I knew. I had stayed silent, waiting for even a $100 gesture of gratitude. Instead, I got this. At 3:27 a.m., I opened my laptop and typed the email my lawyer had been waiting for. Subject: Execute Clubhouse Ownership Transfer. Body: Please proceed with the clause as discussed. I will be available all day. Tomorrow, the Pinecrest Estates Thanksgiving feast would be in full swing. Karen playing hostess to her important tech investors and Instagram followers, all inside a building she had no legal right to occupy. I closed the laptop and allowed myself one small, tight smile. Karen wanted to be in charge. Fine. Let her explain to her guests why the sheriff was at the door with an eviction notice on the cranberry sauce. The favoritism had started long before the money troubles. Karen had always been the golden child of Pinecrest Estates. Pretty, charismatic, perpetually building something big. The previous president had doted on her, calling her the future of our community. Residents praised her for bringing energy, while I was labeled the rule follower who made everyone uncomfortable by asking where the money actually went. I had handled the quiet work, the late-night audits no one wanted to do, the spreadsheets that kept assessments from skyrocketing. Karen handled the photo ops. By 6:45 a.m., her next text arrived while I was pouring coffee. "Hey Lauren, hope you understand about tomorrow. Major players coming. Investors who could change everything for our neighborhood events. You know how you get when you drink wine? And I just can't risk negative energy. Maybe lunch next week? Zoxo, how I get when I drink wine." I had sipped exactly 2 glasses at last year's holiday party, while Karen polished off 3 bottles and cried about how no one believes in my vision. But sure, I was the problem. Then the follow-up. "Also, could you Venmo me $200? The organic turkey from Whole Foods was pricier than expected, and my cards are maxed. Promise I'll pay you back next week." I actually laughed out loud in my empty kitchen. Banned me from the party, then asked me to fund it. Classic Karen. I didn't reply. Instead, I checked my email. My lawyer Sandra had already answered despite the holiday. "Documents ready. Can file at 9 a.m. Sharp. You sure?" I opened the fireproof folder and scrolled. Screenshots of Karen's Instagram bragging about my Clubhouse brunches the week after I bailed out the HOA Venmo request from her. 17 in the past year. Always for emergency event supplies. The email chain where the vice president begged me not to mention the ownership clause at the last board meeting because Karen is sensitive about credit. And the real bomb. 6 months ago, Karen had forged board signatures on a loan application using the Clubhouse as collateral for her personal startup. The bank had called me directly. I had killed the application quietly, but kept every page. My phone rang. The vice president, Karen's loyal enabler, voice artificially bright. "Lauren, honey, I hope you're not upset about the party. Karen really needs this to go perfectly. You understand, right? You're already so successful." I kept my tone even. "Did Karen tell you she tried to borrow against the Clubhouse 6 months ago? Forge your signature." Silence. Then the defensive scramble. She must have been desperate. She's working so hard. I hung up and texted Sandra. File at 9 a.m. No delays. By 10:30 a.m., I was sitting in the United Club lounge at Denver International Airport, snow beginning to dust the tarmac outside. My phone, turned back on against my better judgment, showed 47 missed calls and over 100 texts. Sandra's update had just come through, filed at 9. Process server scheduled for 11:30 a.m. Delivery at the Clubhouse. Perfect timing. Karen would be in the middle of her Thanksgiving performance, probably live streaming her entrepreneurial community leadership to her 3,000 followers while the turkey roasted. I ordered a mimosa and opened Instagram. Sure enough, there she was in the Clubhouse kitchen wearing an apron that read President and Chief Feast Officer, arranging flowers in a vase I had bought for the community last year. Caption: "Getting ready for an amazing Thanksgiving with some incredible innovators and thought leaders. So blessed to be hosting in this beautiful community space. Success tastes even sweeter when you can share it. Entrepreneur life, it's your leader grateful." The comments poured in. That Clubhouse is goals. So inspiring. Living your best life. I took screenshots. Evidence of her claiming ownership on the very day the law was about to prove otherwise. My flight to Sedona wasn't until 2 p.m., but I wanted distance from the temptation to drive over and watch the meltdown in person. Sandra had offered body cam footage from the process server. I declined. I wasn't doing this for entertainment. I was doing it for justice. At 11:25, Karen posted a photo of the dining tables set with the HOA's wedding china collection and professionally arranged centerpieces. When you're building a community empire, every detail matters. My investors are going to be so impressed. 11:30 exactly. I imagined the doorbell ringing. Would Karen answer it herself, expecting early guests in their designer sweaters? Would she try to slam the door? Would the loyal vice president cry? 11:35. My phone exploded. The vice president first. "What have you done, Lauren? This is illegal." Then Karen. "You can't do this. I'm calling the police." The group chat lit up with confused residents. Is the clubhouse being shut down? Karen, what's happening? I finished my mimosa and ordered another. The businessman beside me glanced over, probably wondering why I was smiling at frantic messages. At 11:42, Sandra called. Well, that was theatrical, she said dryly. Process server, says Karen, tried to slam the door in his face, then called the police. Officers arrived, read the documents, and explained it's a civil matter and completely legal. Karen threw the papers at the first investor who walked in. He left immediately. The vice president cried. One resident recorded the whole thing on her phone. I could picture it perfectly. Karen's carefully curated image shattering in real time. The investors, mostly other wannabe HOA influencers she had met at co-working spaces, realizing the successful community leader didn't even own the building she was hosting them in. The vice president wants to know if you'll reconsider, Sandra continued. Says Karen is having a breakdown. Of course. Karen's solution to consequences had always been a public meltdown. No reconsideration, I said. They have 30 days to vacate the premises or sign a rental agreement at market rate, $4,000 a month. I was being conservative earlier. Sandra chuckled. Understood. Oh, and Karen apparently told the police you stole the clubhouse through fraud. They'll want to speak with you just to clear it up. I'll be in Sedona until Sunday. Route everything through you. I switched my phone to airplane mode as boarding began. As the plane lifted off, Denver disappearing beneath the clouds, I felt something I hadn't felt in years, freedom. Not from the money I had already written off, but freedom from the obligation to keep pretending Karen's delusions were harmless. The unraveling started faster than I expected. By Friday morning in Sedona, watching the red rocks glow at sunrise, Sandra sent 3 urgent emails. The first contained screenshots from the local neighborhood Facebook group, where someone had posted, "Anyone else have weird experiences with Karen Blakely's leadership workshops at the clubhouse? She charged me $500 for a mastermind weekend, but yesterday I saw legal papers saying she doesn't own the building." The replies were brutal. She told me she owned 3 properties. She borrowed $2,000 from me for inventory that never existed. The second email was more serious. A local journalist, Rebecca Chun from the Pinecrest Gazette, had reached out. She had been investigating Karen for months after tips about fraudulent HOA fund usage. The Thanksgiving eviction gave her the hook she needed. The third email made me set down my coffee. Your grandmother called my office. Matilda Hayes says she needs to speak with you urgently about financial irregularities involving her HOA trust contributions. Grandma Millie, 85, sharp as ever, and the only resident who had ever questioned Karen's spreadsheets. Karen had mysteriously excluded her from recent events, claiming she was confused. I called immediately. Grandma's voice was steady. Lauren, dear, I've been trying to reach you for months, but the vice president kept saying you were too busy. There's over $70,000 missing from the senior residence discretionary fund. Small transfers at first, then bigger ones. All the credit cards I never opened. And guess whose name variations keep appearing? Karen. Not a question. Identity theft against her own community's elders. This wasn't just HOA drama anymore. This was criminal. Grandma had already filed a police report. The detective told her they had been building a case, but needed a victim to come forward. Apparently Karen had quite the reputation. Rebecca Chun texted next. Karen's so-called investors are talking. 3 claims she took money for events that never happened. 1 says she used falsified financial statements. Can we talk? Grandma had already spoken to her and provided copies of everything. The story would run Monday. My phone buzzed again. An unknown number. This is David Kim from Innovate Denver. I was one of the investors of the feast. Your HOA president claimed she owned multiple properties and showed us fake bank statements. I've contacted my lawyer. Expect to hear from the FBI's white-collar division. The FBI. I sat back on the balcony, watching a hawk circle above the canyon. When I filed those papers, I had only wanted to stop being used. I hadn't known I was pulling a thread that would unravel years of fraud. Sandra called again. Things have escalated. Karen is now claiming on social media that you're trying to destroy her because you're jealous of her success. She started a GoFundMe to fight family, a mean neighborhood, betrayal, and save her business. It's already been reported for fraud. Of course she had. Also, the vice president called begging you to stop the eviction. Says Karen is suicidal. The manipulation playbook, page 1. Anytime Karen faced consequences, she became suicidal, forcing everyone to back down. Is she actually? I asked. The vice president doesn't think so. Your grandmother called separately. She's furious and wants you to know she's standing with you. I decided then. I would talk to the journalist. I would talk to the FBI. But the eviction would proceed immediately. No dilas, no negociations. They had created this mess. They could deal with the consequences. Sunday evening, I returned to Denver to find my building security guard looking concerned. MS. Hayes, your HOA people have been here multiple times. The vice president was very upset. We didn't let them up. I had called management from Sedona, anticipating exactly this. In my apartment, I found 17 sticky notes slipped under the door, all from the vice president, ranging from "please call me" to "you're destroying everything" to one barely legible through tear stains that simply said "please." I threw them away and checked my email. Sandra had scheduled a meeting for Monday afternoon after the article dropped. Bring coffee. It's going to be a long week. Monday morning at 6 a.m. My phone buzzed with a link from Rebecca Chun. The headline read, "The fake president of Pinecrest Estates. How Karen Blakely built an empire of lies." The article was devastating. Rebecca had interviewed 23 people, failed investors, unpaid contractors, former board members Karen had borrowed from and ghosted. She had court records, financial documents, and even security footage of Karen being served the eviction papers mid-feast. The photos showed Karen at networking events in designer clothes bought with HOA money, Instagram posts claiming community success while the neighborhood faced liens. The GoFundMe begging for money to fight persecution while she owed hundreds of thousands in fraud. By 7 a.m., it had been shared 1,000 times. By 8 a.m., local news picked it up. By 9 a.m., when I walked into Sandra's office, it was trending on Colorado social media. Your vice president has called 6 times, Sandra said, sliding coffee across the desk. Karen has called 17 times and left one voicemail that was just screaming. Your grandmother posted the article on her Facebook with the comment, "The truth will set you free." She has more social media savvy than I expected. I sat down, suddenly exhausted. So what happens now? Now the authorities do their job. The FBI has officially opened an investigation. The state attorney's office is looking at the elder abuse angle. 3 civil lawsuits have already been filed by defrauded residents. And your HOA board wants to meet today, here, with lawyers present. 3 hours later, I sat across from the vice president and 2 other board members in Sandra's conference room. Karen was not there. She's with her criminal defense attorney, the vice president said quietly. The room felt smaller with all of us crammed inside. I looked at the people who had enabled Karen for years, praising her vision while I paid the bills. The vice president slid a manila folder across the table. I should have shown you this months ago. Inside were bank statements, emails, photographs, evidence of Karen's fraud going back years. All carefully documented. The vice president had known. She had known everything. I was building a case, she said, voice shaking. I hired a private investigator 6 months ago when I realized money was missing. But Karen begged me to wait. Said she would change. Said we couldn't destroy her reputation. I stared at the proof. Forged signatures. Embezzled workshop fees funneled into Karen's personal accounts. Credit cards opened in elderly residents' names. The same pattern that had nearly destroyed the neighborhood once before. The vice president's voice cracked. I let her convince me you wouldn't find out because Lauren doesn't care about the community anyway. She was sick with guilt but stayed silent. The betrayal hit sharper than I expected. These were the same people who had called me the strong one, who could handle things while Karen played visionary. Sandra cleared her throat. The meeting with Karen is scheduled for Wednesday at 2 p.m. Her attorney wants to make a statement. Wednesday arrived exactly 1 week after Thanksgiving. Sandra's conference room felt even smaller with Karen, her tired-looking criminal defense attorney Harrison, the vice president, and me all present. Karen looked nothing like the polished president from her Instagram. Hair unwashed in a messy bun, sweatpants, old college hoodie. Nails bitten down. She looked 32 and exhausted for the first time in years. "Before we begin," Harrison said, "my client would like to make a statement." Karen stood slowly. When she looked at me, her eyes were red-rimmed but clear. No theatrical tears this time. "I don't know who I am anymore," she started, voice raw. "I've been lying for so long, I can't remember what's real. I look at my Instagram and I don't recognize that person. I look at what I did to the seniors in this community and her voice broke. I want to blame the board for enabling me. I want to blame Lauren for having what I wanted. But it was me. I did this." The vice president reached for her hand. Karen pulled away. "No, that's part of the problem. Every time I faced something hard, you cushioned it. Every time I failed, you said it wasn't my fault. Every time Lauren quietly fixed things, you told me I was just different, special in my own way, and I believed it. I believed I was entitled to success without work, to money without earning it, to respect without deserving it." She turned to me. "I hated you. God, I hated you so much. Not because you were mean, but because you were proof I was a fraud. Every assessment you paid on time, every late-night audit you did without complaint, every dollar you wired to save this place. It all reminded me I was nothing but smoke and mirrors." Harrison cleared his throat. "My client is prepared to plead guilty to all charges. She will cooperate fully with the FBI, make restitution where possible, and accept whatever sentence the court decides." "What about the clubhouse?" the vice president asked desperately. "No," Karen said. "Lauren owns it legally, morally, every way that matters. I'll sign whatever paper she needs. We'll be out by the deadline." The vice president spoke for the first time in a broken whisper. "I found an apartment. 2-bedroom. I can stay there. The board can choose." The implication was clear. Stay with her meant leaving Karen to face consequences alone. Harrison continued. "My client has no assets. The cars are leased. The jewelry is fake. The designer goods are being returned. The total might cover 5% of what she owes. I'll get a real job," Karen said quietly. "Whatever I can find. I'll pay back every penny. Even if it takes the rest of my life, starting with the seniors, then Lauren, then the investors." Sandra noted, "That could take decades." "Then it takes decades," Karen replied. "I'm 32. I've wasted half my life playing pretend. Maybe spending the other half making amends is appropriate." I studied her, looking for the manipulation, the angle, the performance. All I saw was exhaustion and something that might have been relief. The weight of maintaining lies for years had finally broken her. "Why now?" I asked. Karen laughed, but it was hollow. "Because I'm going to prison. Harrison says probably 3 to 5 years, maybe 2 with good behavior. Do you know what happened when he told me that? I felt relieved. Actually relieved. No more lies to track. No more schemes. No more pretending to be something I'm not. Just consequences. Clear, simple consequences." The FBI had already seized her laptop. They found everything. Falsified documents, forged signatures, a spreadsheet tracking which lies she had told to whom. She had been managing her deceptions like a business. "The only successful business I ever ran," she said bitterly. I felt empty. Not vindicated. Just empty. "There's more," Karen continued. "The therapy thing wasn't a lie. I started last week, court-mandated, but still. My therapist says I show signs of narcissistic personality disorder. Maybe born, maybe made, probably both. It doesn't excuse anything, but it explains a lot." "What do you want from me?" I asked. "Nothing," she said immediately. "I want absolutely nothing from you. For once in my life, I want to give instead of take. So here's what I'm giving. A full confession, complete cooperation, and a promise to never contact you again unless you initiate it. You deserve a life free from my chaos. She pulled out a crumpled piece of paper. I wrote this in therapy. Things I stole from you that weren't money. Your peace of mind, your trust in the community, your chance at normal neighborhood holidays, your belief that the people around you actually cared more about the neighborhood than themselves. Her voice cracked. Your belief that I respected you more than I loved myself. The room was silent except for the vice president's quiet crying. I did respect you, Karen whispered. Underneath all the jealousy and resentment and entitlement. I just love myself more, and that's something I have to live with. Harrison gathered his papers. We've said what we came to say. The clubhouse will be vacated by the deadline. All documents signed without contest. Criminal proceedings will move forward with full cooperation. Is there anything else? I looked at Karen, really looked at her. Stripped of pretense, she seemed smaller, younger, lost. The golden president tarnished beyond recognition. But maybe finally real. Karen, I said carefully, when you get out, if you've kept your word, if you've really changed, send me a letter. We'll see where things stand then. Her eyes widened with the first real hope I had seen. You'd you be willing to? I'm willing to see who you become when you're not performing, I said. That's all I can offer. Karen nodded rapidly. That's more than I deserve. Thank you. As they prepared to leave, the vice president stood on shaking legs. Lauren, I'm going to stay in the apartment alone. Not because I'm choosing sides, but because I need to figure out who I am when I'm not enabling her. I've been a terrible neighbor to you. I see that now. I don't expect forgiveness. But I'm in a therapy too. Individual and whatever group the neighborhood starts. If you're ever willing. We'll see, I repeated. It was all I had to give. As they filed out, Karen in the custody of her attorney on bail restrictions, the vice president lingered a moment. Sunday dinner with your grandmother? She invited me too. Said it's time to rebuild with people who choose truth. Yeah, I said softly. Sunday dinner sounds good. And so it ended not with screaming or viral videos or grand gestures, but with quiet admissions in a conference room. Karen facing prison, the vice president facing herself, and me facing the possibility that from the ashes of our neighborhood's dysfunction, something healthier could grow. The clubhouse would be mine, empty of the lies that had filled it. The money was gone, but the truth had finally been paid in full. It wasn't the revenge I had imagined. It was better. It was real. 6 months later, I stood in the doorway of my new home in Boulder, watching movers carry in the last of my furniture. The house was modest. 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, with a view of the Flatirons and the lavender garden I had always dreamed about. I had paid cash using the proceeds from selling the clubhouse after the HOA formally dissolved its claim. It sold quickly above asking price to a young family who loved the historic charm and had no idea of the drama that had unfolded within its walls. My phone buzzed with a photo from Grandma Millie and the vice president. Now, just Margaret, at the farmer's market, both grinning while holding sunflowers. They had become close these past months, bonding over cooking classes and their shared love of mystery novels. Margaret's divorce from the old HOA power structure was final. She had found a small condo and a part-time job at the community center she once helped Karen control. First day of work, she had texted me a selfie in scrubs, at 58, earning my own paycheck for the first time in decades. We texted occasionally now, surface level, careful, but it was progress. Karen had been sentenced to 3 years, eligible for parole in 18 months with good behavior. True to her word, she had confessed everything, helping authorities uncover a web of fraud that extended far beyond what even I had known. She had implicated herself in additional crimes to ensure every victim could seek restitution. I had received exactly 1 letter forwarded through Harrison. Lauren, I'm writing this from my cell after my first month inside. I got a job in the prison library. It pays 97 cents an hour. I've calculated that at this rate, saving every penny, I can send Grandma Millie $50 a month. It will take 42 years to repay what I stole from her. But the math feels clean, honest, real in a way nothing else in my life has been. I won't write again unless you respond. I just wanted you to know that for the first time, I'm exactly who I appear to be, a convicted felon working in a prison library trying to make microscopic amends for macro-sized sins. Thank you for giving me the gift of consequences. I had kept the letter, but hadn't responded. Not yet. Maybe someday. The mover called out, "Lauren, where do you want the dining table?" "By the window," I directed, already imagining Sunday dinners with Grandma Millie and Margaret, and maybe someday others who chose truth over comfortable lies. As the movers worked, I walked out to the backyard where the lavender was already blooming. The afternoon sun was warm on my face, the mountain air crisp and clean. My new neighbor waved from over the fence. She had already invited me to book club next week. This wasn't the life I had planned. The life I had planned included neighborhood holiday parties, a community that actually valued quiet sacrifice, and people who saw me as more than an ATM with rules. But this life, this real, honest, smaller life, fit better than the performance I had been living. My phone rang. "Sandra." "Hey, just checking in on moving day. How's Boulder treating you?" "Good," I said and meant it. "Really good. And how are you?" "Really." I considered the question. I had lost $850,000, the neighborhood as I had known it, and any illusions about unconditional community support. But I had gained something harder to quantify: freedom from the weight of other people's lies, the peace of boundaries held firm, and the knowledge that I could survive the complete destruction of everything I thought I needed. "I'm learning," I said finally. "Learning who I am when I'm not managing someone else's chaos." "Turns out I like her." "Good," Sandra said warmly. "You deserve that." "Oh, and that nonprofit board position we discussed? They'd love to have you. Helping neighborhoods recognize and escape financial abuse. Your story could help a lot of people. Send me the details," I said. Maybe something good could come from all this pain. After we hung up, I sat on my new porch watching the sun set behind the mountains. A text popped up from an unknown number. I almost deleted it, then saw the preview. "Hi, Aunt Lauren. This is Emma, your cousin in Texas. Grandma Millie gave me your number. We're having Thanksgiving at our place this year. Grandma and Margaret are coming. Would love if you joined us. Fair warning, we're terrible cooks but great at board games. No drama, just turkey and really competitive Scrabble." I smiled, typing back, "I'll bring the green bean casserole and prepare to lose at Scrabble." As darkness fell, I walked through my new home, flipping on lights in the spare bedroom. I had hung a single photo, not of a neighborhood I had lost, but of the person I had found. Me at the closing for this house, keys in hand, smiling genuinely for the first time in years. The price of truth had been everything I thought I valued. The reward was everything I never knew I needed: peace, authenticity, and the chance to build something new on foundations that wouldn't shift with someone else's lies. Karen had been right about one thing in her letter. Consequences were a gift, not just for her, but for all of us. They forced us to stop pretending, stop enabling, stop living in service to comfortable delusions. I poured a glass of good wine, without apology, and raised it to the empty room. "To consequences," I said aloud, "and to whatever comes next." The mountain stood silent and eternal outside my window, unchanged by human drama. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new choices, new chances to live authentically. But tonight, in my lavender-scented garden in Boulder, I was exactly where I belonged, home, in every sense that mattered. The golden president had tarnished. The quiet resident had rebelled. The enabling board had awakened. And me? I had finally learned the most expensive lesson of my life. Sometimes the best thing you can do for a community you love is let it fall. And sometimes the best thing you can do for yourself is refuse to catch it. The clubhouse of cards hadn't just collapsed. It had been replaced by something sturdier, smaller perhaps, but built on truth. And that, it turned out, was worth more than all the money I had lost.